afternoon, folks, and welcome to yet another exciting session on reinforcement learning. And the first paper is Curiosity-Driven Exploration by Self-Supervised Prediction, and it will be presented by Deepak Path.
Thank you. Good afternoon. So this is joint work with Pulkit, Alyosha, and Trevor at UC Berkeley. So recently, there has been some striking success in reinforcement learning. Recently, there has been some striking success in reinforcement learning. For example, look at this Atari game. The agent can play the game, shoot enemies, by just looking at the pixels of the screen. But the reason it works so well is that it is using this game score as a reward signal, which provides supervision at almost every time step. So this is a very dense reward. Even for the cases of like navigation, where the task is naturally sparse, most approaches today shape the reward function by adding some intermediate incentives, for example, these apples over here. But real life does not give you apples. In real world, the rewards could be sparse and delayed by days, months, or years, such that it is very hard to backpropagate the signal back to where you are. The way we humans deal with this problem is by employing what psychologists call intrinsic motivation or curiosity. For example, over here we see a kid happily playing with Legos, not trying to maximize any reward, motivated by its own curiosity. But what is the purpose of being curious? One hypothesis is that it's a way to learn skills which could be useful to solve future tasks. So how can we train our agents to do the same? In this paper, we'll formulate curiosity to help agent learn skills which could be used in the future without relying on any extrinsic reward. So how do we operationalize curiosity? One way is to encourage the agent to go to places it has never been before by maximizing something like visitation count. However, it has the limitation that agent sometimes might get stuck in exploring new but boring stuff, which makes it harder to generalize. The other line of work is on building models which predict what would happen next. And then the curiosity or the prediction error in this space helps the agent to explore. However, it is a non-trivial task to evaluate the quality of the prediction. So in this paper, we'll formulate curiosity in this regime of prediction error in such a way that it overcomes some pitfalls of the previous approaches. But before the details, let me provide some intuition about our approach. So for example, in this game of Super Mario Brothers, our agent is born in this environment without knowing anything. The agent's action space are the buttons of the controller, and the agent's observations are the pixels of the screen. Now, to reiterate, the agent does not have access to the reward, to the score of the game, or no extrinsic reward. So in the beginning, the agent may press random buttons. For example, it may say, upon pressing left, the Mario moves to the left. Similarly, on pressing right, it moves to the right, and pressing up, it jumps up and comes down. It also notices that in pressing down, nothing happens, so this has no effect. So basically, it is learning a model of the consequence of its own actions. So an important part of our agent that it tries to predict the action, the consequence of the action before it happens. So for example, in this case, the agent may say that pressing up arrow will lead the agent to go up and then come down. Since in this case, the reality matches the expectation, so this would reinforce the agent's belief. Now let us look at one more example. For example, over here, in this part of the game space, the agent may say, pressing right should move the Mario to the right. But in this case, the reality is different because of the presence of the pillar or this pipe. Hence, it should incur a high prediction error. So what if now agent says press up button? Okay, in pressing up, it expects to go up and then come down. But again, due to the pipe, the agent jumps up but does not come down. So it incurs a very high prediction error. So this is the crux of our idea. We use this notion of failure to predict as the notion of curiosity. And the aim is, or the idea is that in order to maximize this curiosity, agent will be forced to explore part of the environment which are interesting and hence make progress. So to summarize the big picture, the agent begins by learning a model of the environment in order to predict what would happen next. And then it becomes curious about the scenarios which have high prediction error. Now this should in turn enable the agent to improve its model on these high prediction error areas. And once the model is improved, the agent will be forced to go to new areas. And this is how the agent would continually keep learning about the environment and keep making progress. Let us now go through the specifics of how do we implement this module and how do we combine this with reinforcement learning. So to remind you, the standard reinforcement learning, the agent may take some observation and outputs some actions. And these actions may take the agent to a new observation space where it gets some reward. So in this work, we propose something called intrinsic curiosity module. And this module then takes the triplet of your action, current state, and the next state, and it outputs a curiosity reward. The goal of the agent is then to maximize the summation of the extrinsic plus curiosity reward. Now note that this extrinsic reward might be very sparse or completely absent altogether. In that case, the agent's goal is just to explore and maximize its own curiosity. All right, let's move forward and try to see how do we implement this curiosity module. So one very simple way to implement this curiosity module is to take your current observation and the action and then directly predict the next observation in the pixel space. But it is very hard to execute this model. Why? Because despite a lot of progress in generative models in VAs or GANs, pixel space prediction still remains a very hard problem. So, but the more important question is, do we really need to make pixel accurate predictions? Let's see. For example, this scenario. A number of people are eating in a restaurant in a food court, and there is an agent whose goal is to try to navigate through the alley. Now, in this scenario, it is virtually impossible to predict how each of these people will behave even in the next half second. But do we really need to predict everything that we can observe? Perhaps not. The agent can perhaps ignore most of the things in this environment or in the observation space, and then model this lady in the front of it, and nearby objects. And it can totally ignore the crowd beyond all these things, because that crowd does not affect the agent directly, and neither the agent can affect the crowd directly at this point in time. So this is what we would like to capture. We would like to encode our observations into a feature space, and this feature space should have the property that it models a relevant part of the environment, by which I mean it should capture anything that the agent can affect or anything that can affect the agent. And then the goal of curiosity module will be to make predictions in this embedding space or in this feature space. Now, how do we learn this feature space? So we propose to learn this feature space via self-supervision, where the idea is that the feature encoding of the current state and the next state should be useful to predict the action that happened between them. Now, if you think about this module, what will happen? In order to minimize the action prediction loss, the features have no incentive to capture anything that is not relevant for the actions. Hence, it can ignore anything that the agent cannot affect or anything that cannot affect the agent. And so this is what we really like to capture. So we call this intrinsic curiosity module. Let us now see some results. So as the first result, I'll show a demonstration of our agent trying to discover how to play Super Mario Brothers game. So, and it does not use any reward at all, or any score, or any game score. So in the beginning, the agent will perform almost randomly. It may jump here and there and learn a model of how the world works over here, but not make any progress. After some curiosity-driven training, some interesting behaviors emerge. For example, the agent can move through the level, jump through pipes, kill enemies. So it is basically making some progress through the game. And note that it is making this progress only driven by its own curiosity. It is not maximizing any game score, anything at all. So we saw some emergent behaviors over here. For example, we saw that it could jump through enemies, jump through pipes, it could kill enemies, it could stay alive. So these skills emerged because otherwise, if these don't emerge, the agent might get killed and cannot increase its curiosity. So in order to increase or maximize its curiosity, these skills have to emerge. Now, other question is, we have seen all these skills on this level of the game. But the core question is, do these skills transfer to other levels as well? Or the agent is just simply memorizing on this level? So to test that, we can take different levels of the game. For example, this one. So this level looks globally similar, but it has different geometry and different enemies. So if you just take the policy and transfer it as is without any change, the agent can still perform reasonably, even though it has never seen these green turtles or these geometric objects. But not all the levels will be very similar, right? For example, this level. So it looks visually very different and also has different global structures. So if we transfer to this level, it may just jump and not make progress as expected because it's a night world, it's a day world. But we can use the standard fine-tuning trick and fine-tune the policy a bit on this level. And after a bit of fine-tuning, the agent can start to work again. So it can again make progress and move forward and jump through these weird structures, hopefully. Yeah, it is jumping. All right. So we can also quantify these results. One way to quantify is measuring how many times the agent covers a certain distance in the Mario world. So when we measure that, interestingly, it turns out that sometimes training from scratch directly on a higher level does worse than fine-tuning on a pre-trained policy from easier levels. So we have some explanations for it. Come to our poster if you're interested. Let us now apply these ideas to a different domain. For example, 3D navigation in Wisdom task. So over here, the input to the agent are the pixels of this frontal view, and it's a partial observation. So as the agent tries to maximize its curiosity without using any reward, some interesting behaviors emerge. For example, on the left, you can see that agent can navigate through the level and make progress, while a random agent would get stuck easily. So we train our agent without any reward, only with curiosity on this training map. And again, we ask the same question. Do these skills are overfitted to this map, or can they generalize as well? So to test that, we take a different map with completely different textures and transfer the policy, which was trained on this training map with these textures, and it transfer it as it is, without any change, no fine-tuning, nothing. And as you see over here, these skills transfer really well. In a new maze and new textured maze, the agent can still move through the corridors, it can avoid hitting walls, it can come out of rooms very easily. So it is indeed transferring these skills in a very nice manner. So what we have seen so far is that we can learn skills without really requiring an extrinsic reward. And these skills do generalize to different scenarios. But can this kind of exploration also be helpful in goal-directed behaviors? Let's evaluate. So what we would now evaluate is that can our approach be useful when the extrinsic rewards are sparse or there is a goal to achieve? So to test that, we take this maze and add a goal to it. And the agent is tasked to reach this goal. We take two scenarios. In the first scenario, agent is born very far from the goal. We call it a very sparse scenario. And the second scenario is much harder, in which the agent is born even farther from the goal state. Note that agent does not see the map at all. It only sees the pixels of the frontal view. Now, when we take these scenarios and evaluate the baselines, the first approach we try is vanilla A3C algorithm, and this is with epsilon greedy. Since this task is very sparse, this algorithm cannot get the reward at all. That's expected. So let's move forward. And let's evaluate a pixel space curiosity. It turns out that pixel space curiosity does work in the sparse case, but in the very sparse case, it fails to get any reward at all. Other idea could be to find the curiosity in some feature space, for example, autoencoder. So over here, we try that as well. That also works somewhat in the sparse case, but does not work in the very sparse case at all. But our final module, which is our intrinsic curiosity module, it works very well in the sparse case, but in the very sparse case, it is the only method that works. And over here, what we are seeing is the y-axis are the rewards that we get from the environment in reaching the goal, and the x-axis are the number of steps we need to fine-tune the network. So after being evaluated this in the goal-directed scenarios, what you would want to test is, do these skills generalize across different maps? So we take this training map, and we take the policy, which was trained on this map, to reach without any external goal and only by curiosity. We take this policy and transfer to a test map. Now the main idea is, if these policies are actually being transferred, then the agent in this map should be able to learn very fast. So these are the previous baselines, which is our method and the pixel space curiosity trained from scratch. So let's first see, can the pixel space curiosity generalize? So if we take the pixel space curiosity, it turns out that it takes the same number of steps as it takes while training from scratch. So it is not really generalizing. It is not only worse while training from scratch, it is also bad in generalization. But if we take our curiosity module and fine-tune the policy on this maze, it does much better in both the scenarios. And note that, so by much better, I mean that it takes lesser number of training steps in order to get the same accuracy. And as the task is harder, the gap is bigger. One example over here is that our agent can navigate through the maze very well while the baseline policy gets stuck. Now, we have seen all these scenarios, but we also made initial claims about the robustness to the irrelevant part of the environment. So let's evaluate this. So we take this map and add some noise to it. And it turns out that the noise does not affect our agent. For example, on the left, our agent can still go to the goal, while the pixel space curiosity gets stuck very easily because the noise is always changing. And it is apparent in the results as well. This is the pixel space curiosity, and this is our curiosity. And while without noise, they both work the same. Just to summarize, what we have seen is we can learn skills without extrinsic reward. We can generalize these skills to new scenarios. And this is an effective strategy to explore when the rewards are sparse. And our model is robust to irrelevant parts of the environment as well. Our code is on GitHub. Please come to our poster for more questions. Thank you.
So we actually read through this in our reading group, and Christoph Dan had a point, which I think is pretty interesting. There's when you try to set up the inverse action model, the phi could end up being equal to the pi if it's unconstrained representation. And then
So you're saying phi could be same as pi, the policy.
phi could end up being the same as pi if the representations are unconstrained.
Okay.
And then you get kind of a collapse in what the phi does. It doesn't do what you want it to do.
So are you saying phi same as pi? Pi means policy, right?
There's phi, which is your representation.
Yeah.
There's pi, which is your policy.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So the phi could end up being the same as the phi.
Yes.
And then you get a collapse and it doesn't work right.
Yes.
So I think it doesn't happen in your case because you're constrained for representation.
Yeah.
But there's a fix for this that I think if you're doing some kind of exploration,
Yeah.
so you're randomizing,
Yeah.
you can use an IPS technique to erase the possibility of that collapse.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So have you thought about this at all?
Yeah, so I think that's a very good question, and that's the reason why we had different networks for phi and pi, because like some people might think that you might want to have same features for the vision space. So we separate them in order, because they are trying to maximize different loss functions. One is trying to maximize the inverse loss or forward loss, or minimize that, and the other one is trying to go to maximize areas where it maximizes its loss. So to avoid this, right now we have this, we just tune the hyperparameters, which are like the loss weight between inverse and forward loss. But as you're saying, you can definitely deploy those techniques to make it sure that it does not happen theoretically. But right now, we just scale out one parameter, which is the weight loss between your exploration as well as exploitation. But we can incorporate all these scenarios, as you're saying. Thank you.
Also just have regularization term that actually prevents that. But it's a kind of, you could think of it as a kind of a kit.
I guess I like it when
You
the
could have no
optimization.
representational restrictions and yet just have a regularizer that says, I want it to be different.
Maybe.
Yeah. However, it's not very natural that they will end up being the same. It might, there is no constraint, but it's not very natural because one is trying to minimize the forward loss and the other one is trying to go to areas where it's higher. So, but if they end up being the same, that's a problem.
The reason why the phi would collapse to the pi is because then you can exactly predict the action taken by the state.
Oh, okay. So there is a trick over there that you don't backprop the reward maximization to the phi. So this module is not aware of what the pi is doing. If you backprop, then it's a trivial
It
solution.
doesn't need to be aware. It can try to infer that just from the sequence of states.
So it does not act on the sequence. It only acts at the time step level, like at single time step independently. So it only takes current time step into account, and that's it.
While you're
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we can take it offline. Thank you.
so let's thank the speaker again.